In today's video, I'm going to explain to you how to lose fat without animal products. Now, I want to start off with something that might not be obvious to everyone, but the principles for losing fat with or without animals is going to be exactly the same. However, considering I am the Plant Power Coach and I run the Plant Power Academy, we specialize in helping people who are transitioning, flexitarians, going plant-based, vegans, and anything along those lines. So today I thought I might help those people who are trying to lose fat and link it to plant-based eating as well as veganism. Before we move on into the fundamentals of fat loss, I first want to outline the difference between weight loss and fat loss. For weight loss to occur, you simply need to be in a calorie deficit, meaning that you are essentially moving more than you are consuming from an energy intake point of view. This essentially means that the amount you move and standard bodily functions outweigh the amount of energy that you consume, known as calories. Although a calorie deficit is the only requirement when it comes to weight loss, it is highly likely that you watching this video right now are more interested in losing body fat while also preserving muscle mass and athletic performance. That's why I've broken down this specific video into 3 core principles to make sure that you're not only losing fat but also doing it in a healthy and an athletic manner. Now, the first one we've actually already mentioned and is probably going to be the most important out of these 3, and that is creating a calorie deficit. However, it's not just any calorie deficit. We want to make sure that you're in a sustainable calorie deficit. If we were to imagine that your calorie maintenance was 2000 calories, well, the spectrum of your deficit ranges from anywhere around 1 calorie consumed all the way to 1999 calories consumed. Now, the closer we are to that 1 calorie range, the more unsustainable it is. The closer that we are to that 1999 calories, the more sustainable it's going to be. In general, most people get the best deficit by having a range between 10 to 20%. So put simply, the smaller the deficit is, the more you're going to be able to maintain it in the long run. So essentially, the goal here is to eat in a manner that is going to allow you to lose weight consistently and sustainably until you hit your target weight. Now, here I've created my own calorie calculator. I use this one with our students to find their total daily energy expenditure, and then I create a 20% deficit. This is usually the largest deficit I would recommend to most people. Now, as you can see, by putting some simple basic information like age, gender, weight, and height, I'm able to determine an estimate of their basal metabolic rate. So let's start with my weight. I'm about 85 kilos right now. The more accurate you put this in, the better. 177 centimeters. I'm currently 32. I'm a male, and right now I have a bit of a desk job, so I'm a bit inactive. Now, the first thing I want to point out is the BMR. BMR is 1,800 calories. So essentially at rest, I would need to consume 1,800 calories, assuming I was doing absolutely nothing all day. We also know this as coma calories. So if you're in a coma, this is how many calories you would need to consume to neither gain nor lose weight. So something that's extremely important to realize here is that although the BMR is pretty accurate, as soon as we determine activity level and lifestyle, things can get a little bit messy because of internal bias. There are many modest people who are extremely athletic and have high activity levels, but believe they are beginners, and vice versa. There are many beginners who think they are advanced and move more than they think. That's why it's important to use these calculations as estimates and adjust from there accordingly. In this example, it's telling me to consume 2017 calories. However, if I start eating this much on average and my weight stays the same or even increases, I can assume that I'm not as active as I thought and I can drop the calories a little bit more. So in other words, we're looking at this calorie calculation as a theoretical number, but once we put it into practice, that practice calorie is actually going to be far more accurate. Now, it's the same principle if my weight plummets. This could mean I'm actually more active than I thought, and it couldn't hurt to bump those calories up a bit. Remember the sustainability factor. The lower your calories are in a deficit, the harder it's going to be for you to maintain. Now, the second core fundamental here is going to be a chosen physical activity or sport, which is going to create some form of muscular stimulation as well as get the heart pumping. Now, I'm a big believer that your chosen physical activity and sport needs to come from a place of enjoyment. However, it's important to understand that if you're someone who enjoys Zumba, do Zumba. If you're someone who doesn't like doing Zumba, don't do Zumba. But it also needs to be relative to what you're trying to accomplish, meaning that if you want to become a powerlifter, Zumba is probably not going to help you get there. Now, if you want to be a good dancer, powerlifting is probably not going to get you there. There are many different physical activities and sports out there, from bouldering, swimming, or if you're simply someone like me who just likes going to the gym and lifting heavy things. Now, I'll be making future videos when it comes to exercise and exercise selection. However, for this video, all I want you to do is pick a sport that you are actually going to stick to and show up consistently because you, again, enjoy it. If you're someone right now who's not doing any exercise whatsoever, doing 20 to 30 minutes of any chosen activity, whether it be a long walk, a cycle with friends, is going to be mentally manageable, as opposed to going from doing nothing and telling yourself you're going to do a 7-day workout from an Olympic champion and wake up at 4 a.m. every single morning. That's just going to be a recipe for failure. Now, this brings me to the final point of our fundamentals. You need to be consistent. Now, you've gotten into a calorie deficit, you've chosen a sport or physical activity that you relatively enjoy. Now it's simply about applying yourself week after week, month after month, year after year, making small incremental changes to climb your fitness ladder and achieve sustainable fat loss. A common mistake or issue I see with a lot of people is following a controlled calorie intake from Monday to Friday and weekends blowing out. Now, this does not mean that you can't enjoy a go out on the weekends, but it needs to be taken into consideration, especially if you haven't seen any results in quite some time. So now I'm going to use a money budget to get you to better understand what I mean. If I was to give you £100 every single week to do as you wish, you are responsible for how that £100 gets spent. However, if you were to take those £100, use 80 of them to buy yourself some shoes that you probably don't need right now, you're only left with £20, which is hardly going to get you the essentials that you need. You know, I'm thinking food, I'm thinking supplies, I'm thinking gym memberships, those kinds of things. Now let's try something a little bit different. What if we were to spend £70 out of the 100 for these essentials, for the foods, to pay the bills, those sorts of things, while also spending £10 on our gym membership? We now have spent 80 and have a remaining £20 left over. What's even better is that if we take those £20 that we save each week, in 4 weeks' time, we have £80 to buy those shoes that we originally talked about. Now, the point here is that once you have a strong understanding of how much you're consuming in relation to how much you're moving, is when you can start to feel more empowered with the decisions that you're making, as opposed to feeling lost, confused, and blaming other people as well as yourself when it comes to your results. Now, if you found this video useful, please consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me. And for all your coaching requirements, please check out the description below.